Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized.
I think we have heard repeatedly within this committee that Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. Their tactics of terror know no bounds. They will stop at nothing to destroy Israel, present a direct threat to the United States, and indeed our very way of life. The savagery of Iran's terror funding was on full display for the world to see on October 7th. Here, Hamas, that was trained, funded, and supplied by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, brutally attacked our greatest ally in the Middle East, that of Israel. And in this morning's classified briefing with members, we witnessed firsthand the depravity, the barbarism, and the outright slaughter of innocents. As a counterintelligence officer who's worked the Iran portfolio for some time, I've worked with both the Israeli Defense Forces and U.S. allies in the region to counter the IRGC, and specifically Quds Force, their special operations teams in the area. But behind the scenes, the enemy must be crippled, not only by using intelligence operations, but depletion of their resources, most importantly, by addressing their access to funding. That's why I'm proud to be introducing the Revoke Iranian Funding Act of 2023 with my friend and colleague from Missouri, Mr. Blaine Luetkemeyer. This bill would provide a surgical strike, as it were, in rescinding the licenses involving the $6 billion transferred from South Korea to Qatar in September of 2023, effectively cutting off Iran's access to these funds. We have talked a lot about it, Mr. Chairman. It is beyond time that we do something about it. This would ensure that those assets do not flow to Iran and the government of Iran and the weaponization of Iran, and certainly not make it to the Iranian people themselves. Additionally, this bill would ensure that the American people are notified before any additional sanctions waivers are issued to the country of Iran, specifically if the White House feels pressure to do so. It is our duty in Congress to review the sanctions waivers to ensure that our adversaries are not skirting sanctions, breaking rules under our nose, or using non-traditional methods to fund terrorist organizations. As the #1 sponsor of terrorism, my bill would directly counter Iran's ability, with the U.S. government diligently reviewing all Iranian assets over $5 million to accurately understand where the funding is coming from, where it is going, and who is benefiting from it. Mr. Chair, in the last month alone, 40 attacks on U.S. forces in the region have resulted in nearly as many casualties on U.S. personnel. We know directly that by injecting new funds, even for those so-called humanitarian purposes, Iran has redirected those resources to directly fund terror. In fact, our own Department of Justice recently found that Turkish Hala Bank had illicitly transferred approximately $20 billion worth of restricted Iranian funds through a so-called humanitarian exception. But none of that was used for the people of Iran. Instead, it was used directly to threaten the United States and train terrorist groups in both Hezbollah and Hamas. President Biden's own security coordinator for strategic communications, John Kirby, said just last week, the White House shares concerns about any diversion of humanitarian assistance that would assist Hamas's purpose and further threaten Israel and our allies in the region. And when President Biden told the Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi that he would unfreeze the $6 billion in September, Raisi did not say that Tehran would use that for humanitarian purposes. They said specifically they would use it wherever we need it. This is not a regime that is prepared to work together, even for the sanctity of their own people. And while we may want those funds to go to humanitarian aid, clearly the Iranian regime will use it however they see fit, as they have done consistently in the past. So my bill, along with the bipartisan legislation introduced today with members of this committee, would thwart the next terrorist attack launched, funded, trained, and executed by operators in Iran. It is only by choking off the Ayatollah as means of funding, whatever mechanism that may find itself, that we can save both American lives, protect our allies, maintain our position as a global leader in the region, and adhere to what's truly humane, that of saving lives. So with this bipartisan bill, I would not only leverage a U.S. sanction authority to pressure the Iranian regime, but it would also allow the American people to be notified if additional resources are being provided to Iran ahead of time. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would yield back.